on my return to the front lines. The late June sun hung low and merciless over the Volkhov's sodden expanse, casting elongated shadows across the scarred earth where birch stumps jutted like skeletal fingers from the perpetual mire of swamps that had claimed more lives than bullets in this hellish theater. Late one morning, I clambered into my habitual observation post, a shallow scoop of mud and logs, camouflaged with splintered branches and sodden ferns harvested from the riverbank's tangled undergrowth. Mere feet to the right of a lone infantryman manning one of the formidable new MG-42 machine guns, its stamped steel receiver glinting dully under a patina of rust and grime from the river's relentless damp. The weapon's stamped sheet metal construction a testament to wartime ingenuity that prioritized mass production over finesse. The MG-42, dubbed Hitler's Buzzsaw by odd comrades for its ferocious 1,200 rounds per minute cyclone that could empty a 250-round belt in under 3 minutes, rendered individual shots indistinguishable. Instead, it unleashed a savage tear, akin to heavy canvas ripping under a frenzied blade amid the humid air thick with the scent of decaying vegetation and distant cordite. An auditory harbinger that chilled Soviet spines from Leningrad's frozen approaches to Stalingrad's rubble-choked streets. Yet its true genius lay in unyielding reliability. Forged in Mauser's factories to scoff at the Volkhov's viscous sludge, where lesser guns like the finicky MG-34 jammed like betrayed lovers amid the ooze that cloyed every mechanism with tenacious grit. The MG-42's stamped parts and roller-locked action shrugging off mud, as if designed for the Eastern Front's capricious cruelty. The posted sentry, a stranger with a gaunt face shadowed by a Feldmütze, pulled low against the persistent drizzle that turned Foxholes into soupy reservoirs, perhaps a fresh replacement from the Rhineland's industrial forges. His accent a clipped echo of Ruhr Valley dialects laced with coal dust, exchanged scant words beyond terse nods on enemy twitches in the underbrush. Our shared silence, a fragile pact forged in the mutual dread of the marsh's malarial haze. Less than half an hour after my arrival, the air thickened with menace. A Russian assault erupted, a human tide surging from no man's land's tangled thicket of alder, willow, and stunted pine saplings where razor wires snagged greatcoats like desperate claws, and the ground squelched under thousands of nailed boots, churning the peat into a black slurry that sucked at ankles like the grave itself. Instantly, the vigilant gunner, his gloved hands ablur on the spade grip, sweat beading his brow despite the chill, unleashed a ceaseless fusillade. The MG-42's disintegrating belt devouring 7.92 millimeters rounds in a brass storm that stitched the foliage into verdant confetti. The weapon's recoil jarring his shoulder through the padded sling as casings arced hot into the muck. Craning rearward through my field telephone's crackle, its rubber-insulated wire snaking like a lifeline across the ruptured earth to our battery 2 kilometers rear, where gunners sweated over breech blocks in a camouflaged orchard. I barked a fire mission, vectoring our 7.5 centimeters LUFH-18 howitzers to drape a lethal curtain 25 yards for, as proximate as prudence permitted, without courting friendly frags on our own wire. The coordinates scribbled hastily on a soot-smeared notepad under the lip of my helmet. As the assault's roar swelled, PPSH-41 submachine guns staccato coughs mingling with the guttural shouts of Siberian shock troops in quilted telegrikas, their felt boots floundering in the bog's embrace. The Ivans closed like wolves through the impenetrable green veil, bayonets glinting dully in fleeting sun shafts. Bolting my MP-40 to shoulder, its 9mm Parabellum magazine, a curved steel banana clip, walnut stock scarred from a dozen bayonet drills and etched with a crude heart from some long-lost billet, I added my chatter to the maelstrom. The subgun's 500-round per minute bark a frantic counterpoint to the MG-42 symphony, its stamped receiver vibrating against my cheek as I traversed the sector in short, controlled bursts to conserve the 32-round sticks rattling in my ammo pouch. No riposte echoed from the brush. No glint of PPSH drums or Mosin slings betrayed targets amid the leaf-choked gloom, laced with the acrid tang of wet peat smoke. Yet we hosed the sector methodically, traversing muzzles in disciplined arcs from left-right sweeps, conserving no mercy for phantoms that might lurk in the understory's deceptive folds. Our heavy guns' requiem soon joined. 75mm shells shrieking in parabolic fury from the battery's hidden lairs, Airburst fuses blooming crimson blossoms 200 meters out that hurled mud geysers skyward along with splintered timber and the ragged cries of men torn asunder. The earth convulsing in seismic shudders that swallowed screams and turned the advance into a stumbling rout amid the swamp's unforgiving suction. When the MG-42's barrel, its quick-change sleeve glowing cherry red from sustained hellfire, heat mirages warping the humid air like a fever dream, threatened meltdown after chewing through 3 belts without pause, the gunner wrenched it free with asbestos-mittened hands scarred from prior quick changes under fire, hurling the incandescent tube into a rain-filled crater beside us gouged by a previous 120mm mortar. Steam erupted in a hissing veil that briefly veiled us in scalding fog, carrying the metallic bite of overheated steel. Snapping a spare barrel, freshly oiled and nested in an asbestos sleeve from the gun's pannier, its fluting still pristine against the Volkhov's grime. He locked it home with a resonant metallic snick that echoed like a chambered round, the fresh steel humming alive as he resumed the tear, his loader feeding belts with mechanical fervor amid the growing brass mountain at his feet. Already, he waded ankle-deep in ejected casings, brass carapaces tumbling like metallic hail from the receiver's ejection port, crunching underfoot in a pungent reek of cosmoline, gun oil, and the faint, sickly sweet undernote of propellant residue. Half an hour's inferno elapsed without abatement, our barrage of Wagnerian crescendo that chewed the landscape into submission, exhausting my 3rd or 4th 32-round stick. Fingers numb from recoil's insistent bite against my shoulder, magazines swapped in a fluid ballet, honed by endless Dvina drills under Reichardt's exacting eye. I ducked behind the log revetment's splintered bulwark, its mossy bark a frail aegis against snipers, eyes hidden in the far tree-lean's gloom, the wood still tacky with last night's dew. In that 15-second reprieve, ejector's sharp ping echoing my thundering pulse like a metronome of mortality, a fresh banana clip ratcheting home with a satisfying click that grounded me amid the chaos. The machine gun's dirge faltered to an unnatural hush, the sudden silence jarring as a snapped wire. Assuming barrel swap or reload's interlude in the frenzy, I spared a glance rightward over the sandbag lip. The gunner slumped inert beside me, a marionette with severed strings in his greatcoat's sodden folds, blood sheeting from a neat puncture at his temple, just shy of the Stahlhelm's padded leather liner, now sodden crimson and pooling in the mud beneath his lolling head. The shot's silence amid the bedlam, no telltale crack of a distant rifle to betray its path, betrayed a sniper's artistry. Yet mortality's flicker pierced like shrapnel, a heartbeat's lag in ducking to reload, a magazine's tardy depletion by mere seconds, and I'd sprawl in his stead, brains pulped on the logs in a gray-pink smear, life's ledger closed in Volkhov's Vanity Fair of mud and madness, my iron cross a mocking pendant on a cooling corpse. No elegy lingered to mourn the unknown, instincts whip-cracked, survival's calculus overriding sentiment. Crouched low, spine arched beneath the parapet's crumbling lip, MP-40 slung cross-chest like a talisman against the Reaper's reach, its sling tangled in my Feldbluss epaulette. I bolted 15 yards leftward to the adjacent foxhole nest, a hasty sprint across shell-churned clay pocked with boot-suck craters and the detritus of hasty meals. Empty sardine tins, half-buried, like shrapnel relics, alerting the rifle squad huddled there amid their K-98S and a tripod-mounted MG-30-4 to their orphan sector. MG. AUS, Sniper im Dickicht. Deckgung Hal 10, UND Fjord Blind. Any line dog would have chained to post like Prometheus to his rock, weathering the gale with gritted teeth and prayers. Yet forward observer's leash, tethered to fire's invisible leash rather than flesh's anvil of attrition, afforded egress from doom's epicenter, sparing me the enigma comrade's terminus and allowing me to orchestrate the line's lifeline from a safer vantage. June 28th sealed Volkhov's Weiss in a pyrrhic laurel for the Wehrmacht, after 3.5 moons of unrelenting attritional warfare that had hemorrhaged over 200,000 German casualties across Army Group North by November's tally, thinned by starvation rations of 1,200 calories daily, dysentery's drain, and the swamp's malarial miasma. Oberkommando der Heer's trumpeted bounty in its evening bulletin. 33,000 Ivans and fetters shuffling to rearward camps under Feldgendarmerie whips, 650 red tubes. twisted into scrap, 170 Panzers prizes for the scrap heap or reverse engineering at Kummersdorf, and 3,000 MGs mauled into silence. Among the thralls, a prize beyond measure. General Andrei Vlasov, erstwhile commander of the Soviet Second Shock Army, whose Lublin offensive had been ground to ruin in the pocket's maw. His capture in a peasant's izba during the encirclement's collapse in July, marking a propaganda coup. Disillusioned with Stalin's purges and collectivization's cruelties, Vlasov would later helm the Russian Liberation Army, ROA, a motley force of 50,000 turncoats in captured Feldgrau, only to face Moscow's noose. In 1946, as a traitor, his Lubyanka show trial a Stalinist spectacle of extracted confessions and ritual humiliation. Volkhov's victors bore victors' voids are gone parade, uniforms hanging loose on frames whittled by ceaseless exposure to the elements and meager, felt-cut slop of watery barley soup laced with horsemeat scraps. Little exalted above the captive's chains rattling toward Dulag's barbed purgatories. My frame withered 20 to 25 pounds to a spectral 160, ribs ribbing like a washboard under taut skin, cheeks hollowed as a mendicant's begging bowl, eyes sunken in sockets bruised by perpetual fatigue, yet peers plumbed deeper abysses. Trench foot's black rot festering into gangrenous stumps requiring field amputations with rusted saws, dysentery's relentless drain turning men to ambulatory skeletons, and shell shock's silent scream manifesting in thousand-yard stares amid the barrage lull. Post-fray ramble o'er Schlock's charnel, the once vital artery now a necrotic vein, a petrified woodland of truncated trunks marching horizon-ward in serried ranks, where dense groves of pine and aspen had whispered ancient Karelian secrets to the wind before the Nebelwerfer's harvest reduced them to matchwood. Soviet remnants, or visceral shards thereof, tapestried the furrow in grotesque abundance, limbs akimbo in frozen rictus amid the peat's peaty embrace, torsos eviscerated by 88 mm flak shrapnel scythe or the jagged kiss of DP, 28 bursts, faces contorted in final defiance or vacant surprise, the miasma a charnel fog that cloyed the throat, putrescence's palate of gangrene's sweet rot, voided bowels ammonia bite, and the faint, sickly undercurrent of propellant residue from unburnt charges, gagging even the crows that wheeled overhead in wary circles. Schlock slaughter, Hell's atelier in fathomless filth, where over 300,000 Soviet dead had carpeted the counteroffensive's folly from January to April. Their unburied forms a grim testament to Zhukov's meat-grinder tactics. Yet triumph's tonic surged through our veins, Ost's odyssey ours, Reich's resolve reforged in the crucible of Kurland's kin, belief in the Wehrmacht's unyielding elan unshaken. That swelter of 42, the southern steppes surge under case blue, Manstein's panzers slashing toward the Caucasus oil fields and the Volga's distant bend. Army Group South's triumphant thrust promising Barbarossa's belated harvest. Fueled fate's flame. Victory's verge within grasp, not the vain mirage it would prove amid Stalingrad's gathering storm. July 1st to August 11th, 1942. July 1's dawn dispatched the 58th Northwest 75 miles to Oranienbaum Kessel's rim, a Soviet bridgehead enclave carved in the summer of 41, a defiant 20 by 10-mile lunette of dunes, dikes, and fortified fishing villages hugging the Gulf of Finland's fog-shrouded littoral, where Leningrad's beleaguered garrison clung to Kronstadt's naval lifeline amid the ice-choked approaches, 15 miles west Uritsk-Sombra. The salients encircled Ivans, a festering thorn supplied by submarine shuttles and blockade runners defying Luftwaffe patrols. Division span, 15 miles skein o'er salt marsh meadows and concrete casemates inherited from Tsarist coastal forts. Yet Torpor's truce supplanted trenches toil, a languid lull amid wires whisper. The distant boom of naval salvos from Kronstadt a rhythmic metronome to our patrols, and the cry of herring gulls wheeling over mine-swept shallows a mocking echo of Baltic homecomings. Arrival's accolade from the company chief. His briar pipe a perennial ember clenched in teeth yellowed by ersatz tobacco, eyes crinkling with rare approval. Bestowed the infantry Sturmabsiegen in close combat, a silver-gilt badge of crossed rifles and grenade etched with martial motifs, clasped for cumulative carnage. Neva's notch where I'd vectored fire through reed beds to shred assault boats. Volkhov's vice amid the peat's perilous suck. Metal's mosaic. A cruel's art over singular saga. a silent ledger of nights spent whispering coordinates into field phones while flares etched the sky in magnesium glare. Uranium bombs harbored sporadic stings. Weekly Soviet sappers, raiding packs slung with pliers for wire clipping and satchel charges of TNT wrapped in oilcloth, probing under moonless skies for MG-42's plunder, captives croaking under felt Polizei lamps that their commissars coveted Hitler's sage for the Rodina's arsenal, dreaming of reverse-engineered replicas to stem the Wehrmacht's tide. Reciprocities raid from our side. Forays in 12-man shadows to rare century-strong stabs, Stahlhelm silhouettes slinking through salt marsh fog. Bayonets gleam fixed for Ivan's intel. Wrists raw from rifle butts pried from stiffening fingers in dawn sweeps. Readiness right became my ritual, vigilant in the command post's candlelit gloom. Howitzers harness at hip like a faithful hound, primed for retreat's requiem if patrols tangled in ambuscades. Two or thrice. Our 10.5 centimeters SK-18's thunder turned the tide. High-velocity shells arcing over the Gulf to crater the bridgehead's rearward trails and scatter relief columns into the dunes' deceptive folds. Brevity's bomb after Volkhov's vice. 3 moons marathon of unremitting melee that had cost Army Group North over 40,000 irreplaceable veterans to the swamp's silent reaper. Was an aberrant anvil in the Ostfront's forge. Norm's Nod decreed 3-4 weeks whirlwind of white-hot action. Then rears repose in canvas roof tents or commandeered isbas. Iranian bombs oasis. 80 to 90% fronts forge in the salient static stare-down. Rotations rare respites to battery lairs where orderlies brewed ersatz coffee from acorns. Yet bunkers bounty afforded scats shuffle o'er ammo crates scarred by bayonet practice. Quill's quietude to Annalisa's apparition in inked reverie, or the rare luxury of a pipe's contemplative puff while scanning the Gulf's gray horizon for periscopes. Schwer Company's solace eclipsed infantry's yoke. Rear's radius rivaled lines lash. Our gunners' emplacements nestled in reverse slope orchards shielded by earth berms, unyoking us from the eternal wire crawl that ground line dogs to ghosts. August 1's ascent etched Unteroffizier's chevrons on my sleeve in dull wool thread, a modest rung above Gefreiter's grind. A week thence, Winterschlacht im Osten's Jefferine's Fleischmetal, its silver wreath encircling a fjord's frozen fjord and polar bear's prow, commemorated 41-42's polar purgatory, where frostbite felled fiercer than 152mm barrages, claiming limbs to the gangrene's gangrenous grasp in lazarette's frozen limbo. Furloughs fiat crowned the interlude. August 11's exodus from Iranian bomb's outlier, a 1,000-mile odyssey threading railheads from Pskov's pine-veiled valleys through Warsaw's wary gaze to the Reich's welcoming wire. Last Heimat hearth since November 40's fleeting embrace. Russia's remoteness of vast as Taiga's tract, where home shimmered like a mirage o'er the steppe. August 11th to August 30th, 1942. Reich's rim at Tilsit, East Prussia's threshold. Memmel's kin in the Niemenas Bend. Demanded deloused drench in a cavernous disinfection barack. Garments and gear consigned to steam chambers scalding maw, Zyklon BS chemical cousin purging Lysa's legions in vaporous veils. Cascades of scalding sluice in tile troughs followed. Vermin's vanquish under coarse hog bristle brushes that left skin raw as fresh flayed hide. Ost's exodus. Euphoria's exhale, Russia's reek, peat's pungency, unwashed wool's woe, receding like nightmare's nimbus, supplanted by the familiar tang of sauerkraut vendors at platform edges. Puggan's portal, 3 dawns post-departure. Kin's cascade warmer than Belgian's bomb, embraces engulfing tide. Sisters surge into my arms. Margaret's 5-year bloom, a whirlwind of pigtails and freckles. Cherub-cheeked sprite demanding romps through rye's ripening ripple and barnyard chases amid clucking hens. Her giggles, a garrison's grace echoing from the thatched eaves. Hero's halo enveloped me. Moody's banquet in the annex alcove off the kitchen. Platters of smoked eel from the Elba's kin, black forest hem sliced translucent, and fresh-baked rice studded with caraway. Envy's sidelong gaze from siblings clustered at the door, their plaintive chorus a conqueror's crown. Here Compter Cookerman, MIT Gebak for a Leman. A nursery rhyme twisted into pastry plea, their faces pressed to the crack like supplicants at a shrine. Civi's courtesy toward the Feldgrau remained undimmed, despite Legion's levy-draining villages to skeletons. In Salzweddel's cobbled square, Moody's mandate unfurled my uniform's creases before our shopping sortie. epaulets echoed drawing nods from housefraus, and a baker's gratis brötchen slipped into my satchel. The public's pride a palpable pat on the back for oasts or deals whispered in hushed tones. Re-immersion's rift yawned wider than France's furlough flow. The latter's familial rhythms, supper's chatter, sunset strolls through orchards heavy with unripe plums, slid seamless as a well-oiled Mauser. Russia's revenant remade me. Psyche's shrapnel lodged deep, peril's phantom pulsing in every rustle of wind through Puggan's poplars, turning harmless shadows into snipers' silhouettes. Labor's lotion proved therapeutic tonic o'er torpor's trial. Dawn's dew on the furrow, sides swing harvesting clover for Thea's future kin. The rhythmic clop of hooves and harness, a heartbeat syncing with home's yet soul's scar from slayer's stain. The ghost of a Siberian's final gasp haunting the haylofts hush. Eternities etched no plow could efface. Puggan's pivot endured unchanged. The timbered stead with its saltbox roof sagging under pigeon roosts, the hearth's familiar crackle of birch logs. Yet warp's weave threaded the warp. Paus influx as ersatz's engine. Conscript's chain clanking from factories forge to fields Philip for fronts void. 39's Polish prelude. Lodz's laborers, gaunt in striped denims and wooden clogs, eyes hollow as their homeland's ruins. 40's Gallic graft swelled the cadre. French poilus in berets' jaunty tilt. Belgian chocolatiers with callous palms turned to pitchforks. Retribution's rod for clans not seen a deer. Our quiet apostasy, a thorn in the Gauleiter's side. Thrust fodder into Folksturm's vigil at 50 winter's wait. Pub's portal guardian down the lane. Its oaken door bolted on the ballroom's Bolshevik ballet of 20 thralls snoring on straw pallets under guard's gimlet eye. Nocturnal neighborhood rounds his weary watch. Escape's echo lingered in Belgian banter o'er evening black bread. Bald Wachterdoo, Haftlingwer, Lübeck. Prophetic jest laced with the bitterness of Brussels boulevards lost, yet bloodless bond forged in shared soup kettles. Sigmund's sojourn, poles packed from Lodz's loom to our furrows fellow. His factory-forged frame stooped beside fodder in the beet rows, sweat beating his brow under a woolen Ushanka. Table's tryst defied edict's eat apart. Moody's laden trencher granting him seat at the oak board laden with cartoffelsup and rye. Her maternal mandate a quiet rebellion. Altental's annex, grandparents' ghost-haunted haven, its walls papered in faded florals, became his sanctuary seal, a locked garret with straw tick and tallow stub. Belgian bis echoed the idol. Duo's diligent duo, labor's litany in the milking shed and harvest's haste. Harmony's hymn amid the war's distant drone. Idol's illusion cloaked war's whisper for fight's fringe dwellers. Yet August 21 sally to Hamburg's heart pierced the veil. Annalise's allure a lodestar through the Reichsbahn's rattling ribs. Billet's bridge, ink's intimacy o'er 2 years' thirst, slaked in script sacrament of thrice weekly missives. Her florist's fetter frayed by fidelity's fault lines, petals wilting in another's vase. Arcade's assignation gainst Ulster's azure arch, Rothouse's renaissance reflection shimmering like a promise. Her silhouette gainst Bloom's bouquet in the station's spring supplant, lace-trimmed collar framing a face flushed with furtive joy. Half-day's haze wove words intimate weave with strides syncopated. Uritsk's ice shard splintering in memory's thaw, Volkhov's viscous vortex vaporized in her visage's valor, the gulf between us bridged by a stolen clasp of hands beneath the arcade's shadow. Heart's harvest brimmed, wife's whisper unfurled unbidden, bethrothal's bond beacon, despite others' oath binding her to Hamburg's hothouse air. Candor's cascade o'er coffee in a corner conditoré, steam rising like unspoken sighs. Entschuldigung die Storm, Doc mein Liebe ungestelt, du bist mein Morgenstern. Her helm, Troth's tiller amid turmoil's tide, time's inexorable ebb. Trains tethered to Puggan's remnant week, Cloverleaf's clasp in parting. Gold's four-lobed gleam on a slender chain, Luck's lodestar forged in a jeweler's vice. Slipped into my breast pocket's folds, a talisman's touch against the talisman's tempests. Fate's favor invoked with a whispered, Veal Gluck, main lieutenant. Furloughs fade into September summons. 70 miles south Leningrad's loom to Ilmen's north shore. Novgorod's nub jutting like a Kievan Khan's forgotten outpost amid birch copses and boggy meadows. Quarters quiet in Dacha's derelict shells. Wooden shutters askew. Samovars cold on Kamen hearths. Soviet shore sentinel gainst amphibious anathema. Our pickets, pacing pebble strands, under flares, fickle glow. Vigil's vanity. Company's crust could crumple a battalion's breach or the lake's lapis lazuli. Pushback's pledge etched in our 15 cm's lethal arc October 15th tweaked to Grenadier's graft. Firepowers faint through machine guns multiply. MG, 42 nests doubled in the wire. And mortars might swelling the salvo. Yet manpower's maw had mauled us. Battalions bleed from Volkhov's 40,000 ghosts, leaving regiments ragged. Pride's panoply shrugged, redesignations ripple. Units umbra unbowed. Our iron crosses, a constellation undimmed. Langer's lease. Drills decorum in dawn's dew, sun sprawl on Ilmen's lap. Letters lore from Puggan's post. Annalise's ascent to engagements end o'er florists' faded vows. Heart's harvest bittersweet, charm's curse. Clover's cloak vanished in a Volkhov patrol's pocket pat. Luck's lodestar lost to the Myers maw. Novgorod's nook beckoned 15 minutes meander. Street spectral hush of shacks shingled squalor and concrete's drab tenements. Plaza's patrician bronze burgers. Yaroslav the wise in verdigris patina. Relics. Gainst rothouses, rubble-flecked facade. Kirk's kaleidoscope. Onion domes dazzle in turquoise tile. Yet desecrations dross within. Grain's granary silos stacked to iconostasis. Beats blight staining frescoes saints in purple pulp. Bolsheviks' barbarism a blasphemous blight. Christ's crib profaned into collectivized crib. Europe's Eshadin under atheists, acts of iconoclasm. Banya's bliss lured regiments rod. 50 yards sauntered to steam scourge in birch log lean-to. Vapor's velvet embrace. Venic whisks of silver-leaved twigs lashing skin to rosy renewal. Snow's shiver sequel. Rolling nude in drift's diamond dust. A ritual borrowed from rusky resilience to thaw the marrow's frost. Fish's folly tempted. Kellerman's kiss into Ilmen's inky depths. Sledges stun sending perch and pike belly up in stun flotillas. Surfaces spoil netted in hasty hauls. Tragedy's toll. Quartet's quarry when charges chorus capsize their pirogue. Boats bloom a brief fireball o'er the waves. Death's dalliance intruding idols interlude. A stark sermon on war's whimsy. Demiansk, November 42 to February 43. 41-42's Winter Wolf gnawed Ilmen south. Isolation's iron ring clamping 100,000 Germans in a salient starved, but for Luftwaffe's lifeline. 33,000 sorties, hauling 59,000 tons of ersatz and ammo through Flak's gauntlet. November's nadir summoned 58 th succor to Pola's polar fringe. Valdai's vaulting heights, Schlock's north bank a frozen rampart of snowdrifts and spruce windrows. Ridge's rampart gainst the corridor's crux. That precarious 4-mile flank and 7.5-mile spine airlifted since 42's vice. Locale's lapse veiled us. Tactical's tunnel vision. Geography's ghost a mere contour on the Hauptmann's map. Demiansk's drone. Constant's cadence o'er Volkhov's veiled vice. Assault's anvil from Ivan's 11th Army. Raids ripple in moonlit meadows. Ground's gambit in tactical tango. Lines lock amid the Lovat's liquescent loop. Personal's prism etched indelibly. Ridge's roost with Funker's flank. My signal's Obergefreiter. Wire spool at ready. Bunker's burrow in log's lattice cribbed from felled firs. Snow's shroud sculpting walls white as a polar bear's pelt. Snipers spite a persistent ping from across the valley's veil. Sniper's snare turned daylight's dungeon to bunker's bind. Frustration's forge birthed Mauser's muster. K-98K's bolt slick with gun oil, ramparts rend by kneeling carve. Aperture's auger scooped with bare hands through packed powder. Winter's white waste yielding a loophole's lens. Scrutiny stare o'er the undulant ermine. Naught betrayed the nest. Perhaps a shrouded bough in yonder copse. Barrels glint veiled by white smock. Till shots shiver burst the wall. Slugs supersonic sigh parting hairs above my Stahlhelm's rim like a lover's breath. Defeat's deference. Rifles recoil from the hole. Ducks dash to bunker's bosom. Sniper's stalemate. Life's lottery learned. Tower's toll. Ivan's idle in open idleness. 500-yard saunter gainst the snow's stark stage. 50 millimeters granitwerfer's murmur a 1.5 kilograms exarch. Startle sprint through drift's deepening drag. Snow's snare clutching like spectral hands. Gauntlet's grace in half-dozen's hail. Unscathed shade a sniper shrug. Quarry's quid pro quo. Week's wager in wideout's wager. Snow's surfeit blanketing Opie's oasis. Bunker's bulge protruding 6 feet from the crust like defiant cairns. 100 yards taunt across the traverse. 150 millimeters SFH 18th lance loosed on square foot strike. Left slaps 20 yards astray in powder plume. Right's rebound 10 yards over an overkill. Delayed doom on third's whisper. Fuses fizzle birthing whooshes wake inside log and earth shell. Smoke specter seeping like a genie sigh. Praise pivot or mortar's menace. Camouflage's crack betrayed in 20 minutes mark amid the flats fanfare. Clumsy's churn through knee-deep powder. Shell's shadow shrieking from unseen tube. Air's rush a gale's gasp. Snow's salve muffling the 82 mm's 3 kilograms warhead's whipcrack. Jackets jag from splinters sting in padded K-Pox kiss. Half-hour's harvest in the bunker's bowels. Shrapnels shave by comrades' forceps. Each barb a burning barb. Bunker's boon. Precision's passion kindled bunkers busting bent. Half-dozen's harvest o'er the annum. Specialist spur in 13 th's toast or ersatz snaps. Enemies ear strained. Loudspeakers lash from tripod-mounted horns in no man's land. Names notoriety in guttural Hochdeutsch. Lubeck. Beifang Hodnub. Nuts nemesis, a captured Feldwebel's croak. Bunker's blame pinned on my ranging rod. Castration's chill scarred memory. Regiment's revenants from a prior probe. Sergeant and Gefreiter's groin gouge gore in dawn's discovery. Blood's basin a frozen tableau. Brutality's bond forging prisoners phobia absolute. Suicide's sacrament in cyanide vials secreted against the talisman's talisman. Illinois, where POWs packed promised Geneva's grace or Gulag's grind. February's flight from liability's lift. Equipment's exodus in sleigh convoys under Ju-52's watchful wings. 17th's edict unleashing orders odyssey amid Zhukov's closing jaws. 24th's decamp for 58th. A fighting fullback through minefields laced with teller mines and tripwires humming with tension. March's mantle reclaimed Ilmen's North Redux. Novgorod's near amphibious anathema now ices ingress. The lake's frozen pain a vast white billiard table for Ivan's Iskra. French's FO disaster's dirge for red assaults. Flats fanfare betrayed approach miles off. Floodlights flare from searchlight batteries etching night in xenon blaze. Artillery's anathema from 15 centimeters batteries cratering the crust. Shatter sluice sending T-34s and Toad's IS-3s plunging through fissures into the 20-foot depths. Water's woe-claiming crews in sub-zero strangulation. Battalion's bane o'er frozen fjord. Sled surge on motorized sledgehammers. Caterpillar track behemoths belching exhaust. Repulse's requiem in heavy toll. Casualties call from our lines, interlocking fields of fire. Banya's bis o'er relaxation's right. Regiment's rod to steam scourge. Snowballs skirmish in nude's nirvana. Flakes flurry on flushed flesh. War's wisp whisked away in momentary madness. Morale's molt o'er 43's declension. Nord's nadir girded 41's gains like a rusted ring. Stalingrad specter. Encirclement's echo in the 6th Army's 91,000 survivors shuffle to Siberian shadows. Goebbels' gloss scant salve for the wound. Holmes' Holocaust. Raids requiem o'er Rhineland and Ruhr. Casualties cascade in Lancaster's lethal lace. Fates flicker amid the flak's feudal fan. Yet superiority's sinew-pulsed. Troops temper in drill-honed discipline. Gears gleam from Porsche's prototypes to Messerschmitt's maelstrom. Generals grace in Guderian's gambits. Industry's idle forging tigers treads from captive coal. Defensive's dictum. Exhaustion's exchange in elastic recoil. Peace's proviso a platter of territorial trove. Ukraine's black earth and Baltic's bays bartered for armistice's ink. Hitler's helm. Post-war's prism unveiled general's grudge gainst the Berghof's bungles. Whim's whip lashing logistics to lunacy. Tactical's tear intact in the foxhole. Strategic scourge in the Stavka's shadow. Politruck's plague. Company's commissar a crimson curse. Tactics tether in ideological irons. Casualties cult quarters quota to vodka's veil or unarmed urn. NKVD's noose behind the line. NKVD's nested nests ensuring no backward glance. Interrogation's irony. Smile's shield gainst pistol's prod. Clubs cringe the crude convincer. Quarters quota to the Politruck's pen. A quarter of Red's 27 million dead laid at their ledger's door. Mongolian's menace. 43's influx from Gobi's grit. Slav's shadow in step-scarred stoics. Brute's brawn in burly berserkers. Respect's requital o'er courage's crown. Motherland's martyr in Mosen's unyielding grip. Late March, April 24, 1943. Sieges Skane tightened Leningrad's leash. January's Janissary pried Ladoga's lane. Southwestern shores supply snakes slithering, neath the Wehrmacht's watch. March's melee, Ladoga's second lash. 60 miles north Ilmen's ink to Krasnodar's crux. Neva's north bank a Neva's nub of flooded meadows and fortified farms. Reserves roost behind Blue Division's bulwark. Phalanges fray in Feldgrau borrowed. Allies arc from Ebro's embers to Osu's. 13 th's churn. Monterman's mount to battalion's batten. Jurgen's jump in his wake. Reichardt's reign o'er the remnants. Liaisons lash my lot. Spaniard shade. Cordials clasp o'er shared schnapps in slit trenches. Competences qualm in their Civil War scars. Losses ledger from Iberian infantry's inexperience. Assault's anathema if Ivan's Iskander struck true. Krasnodar's crisis. Artillery's anvil from across the Neva. 105's aid in lobbing 15 kilograms eggs o'er the treetops. Reels recoil as Spanish lines buckled. Regiments rush to staunch the seam. Counters coup in a whirlwind of MG nests and panzerfausts. Breakthroughs balk amid the birch grove's bloodied bowls. Quiets quilt o'er Krasnodar's quilt. Village's vestige erodes ragged ribbon flanked by houses husk. Burns blight from 41's Bolshevik bonfires. Scorched scar and ashen foundations. Dacha's duo intact. Women's wheel in weary widow's gaze. Apathy's aura gainst Uritsk's umbra. Their kerchiefed heads bowed o'er samovar steam. Banya's bane shadowed relaxation's right. Blues blunder with MG's mishap. A La Coruña LMG's live burst through bathhouse planks. Quartet's quietus in steam's sudden shroud. Bitternesses bite o'er brandy toasts turned to curses. Deaths desensitize a soldier's stoic shrug. April 24's absolution. Furloughs flight from Foxholes familiar. Home's horizon a hazy harbor. Readjustments rift a week's wilderness of wandering wits. Combats cling in every creak of floorboard. Night's nightmare o'er Neva's nocturnal nods. Weeks thaw in Puggan's peace before return's rueful reveille. May 8's marvel. Annalise's advent to farm's frolic. Futures forge in furrow-side confessions. Sister in plated games amid the geese. Moody's muse in maternal murmurs. Fada's veto o'er depression's dirge of 29's dust. Material's mire in dowry's dream. Decisions decree my defiant dictum. Meanwhile, Veitai. Liba's Leetstern unentaskbar. Flowers fade to Red Cross's call. January's vow in Hamburg's hospital halls. 3 moons mend in bandage rolls and bedpans. May 12 sunder. Risks reciprocity as trains toll called. Fronts forge her frontier too. May 15th to July 24th, 1943. Parting's pang pierced deeper than panzer round. Trains tracked a torment of ticking miles. Arms ache an echo of embrace. Home's hologram fading to Foxholes flicker. Death's dice rolled anew with every rail jolt. Krasnodar's crucible. Weeks wane to war's warp. Cares call in careless glances. Cautions cloak my crutch. Hazards hush in hypervigil. Fluids fray o'er fixed lines. Foods forage the furtive foe. Trenches trove raided for bully beef tins and hardtack. Pillages ploy in bunkers burlap hoard. Counters clockwork o'er tacit timetable. Ivan's ingress inverted in our iron ring. Birthdays bloom on 23's June 17th. Reichardt's cognac a captured French elixir. Ambers glow in gouged glass. Service's solace under regimental padres' portable altar. 2 years thirst slaked in psalms murmur since Barbarossa's baptism. Artillery's augur amid trees tranquility. Booms betrayal from distant 122 millimeters. Whistles whip a siren song. Flats fortune in mud's mercy. 3-4 feets fall muffled in peat's plush. Maya's mantle a muddy mask. Unhurts him a heartbeat's grace. Nocturnal nadir in bunker's blur. Grenades grasp in half-wake's haze. Russ and common. Comrades clutch yanking the mill's bomb from fumbling fist. Pins poise intact. Space's scourge in sod-roof sepulcher. Ranks relic dissolved in bonds bulwark absolute. Home's haze o'er Annalise's anchor. 22's June 29th garlanded in a dozen red roses freighted from Reich's remnant hothouses. Hope's harbinger in velvet petals. Affection's arc and arrow to her heart. Letters litany. Sentiments see in censored seas. June 20's howitzer hymn o'er Duels duel with Soviet 152s. July 10's repulses requiem in mortar's measured might. Routine's ripple soon sunk in after-actions archive. July 22's Ladoga lash. Third's thrust o'er lake's literal. Neva's nub in Senyavino spine. For miles Latiga's lip. 3 MGA's margin in rail, ragged vein. 67 TH's gale. Heaviest hammer in high explosive hail. August 4's agony o'er lost loams. Counters cull in crimson clover. 8 TH's snare in foxholes fast. Earth's embrace a brother's beer. Road's riddle. Lieutenant's lure in unsoiled feldbluss. North's nix o'er no man's north. Salute's shadow exchanged in wary warmth. Suspicion's specter of fleeting frisson. Bombardment's bolt. 50-60 storm from Stalin's organs. Katyusha's comet tail contrails. Pinpoints peril in parallax precision. Entrenchment's aegis o'er howitzer's hush. Spy's spore in the stranger's stride. Vow's vigilance etched in vigilant vein. Afternoon's augury with Schutz's shadow. Quiet's qualm a prelude to probe. Pines perch in arboreal eyrie. 100 yards veil from trench's lip. Telephones thread trailing like umbilical o'er root and rut. T-34's tide. Northeast nemesis in diesel growl 500 yard stalk gainst flats fallow. Tank's turret swiveling like a blind cyclops. Troops tread in Telegrika's tumble. 150 mm's lance loosed on closest crawl. Left's laps in powder plume knocking Ivans like dominoes. Right's rebound short shiver in soil spray. Marks miss by feet's few. Turrets toll in fort's fury. Smoke specter from breached glassy. Treads tear in fifth side swipe. Third's thaw to watchful halt. Fourth's flight in. Reverse roar. 15th's phantasm on hill's hump. Armored hosts hush. Behren's bark o'er wires whine. Trees trespass a tactical temerity. Verdammt Lubeck bombklittern. Tanks tally in terse report. Assaults alert to division's drum. Divisions dispatch in panzer reserves rumble. Dusk descent. Trunks tumble in bark-burned palms. Triumphs toast o'er gun crews' gruff grins. Indirects idle in war's whimsy. Moving marks mastery, a marksman's myth. Casualties calculus. Artillery's anvil ground most gray. Mortar's menace a statistical shadow. IL-2's Ilmen in Sturmoviks sting o'er midday meadows. Patu's polka in the Hernamaskin's nocturne. Cigarettes chink a fatal flare. Glides ghost in engine's eerie hush. Misfires maelstrom. Howitzer's hiccup in barrel's bloom. Crews cull in chain catastrophe. Crater's chasm swallowing 5 souls. Phosphorus's phantom from prior Patu's payload. Corrosion's creep in shell skin. Investigations interdict in pullback's press. Hasty heave to harbor's hold. Fluids flux o'er Neva's nomad. Trenches tether to counter's cascade. 13 TH's truce in observer's orbit. Volkhov's vignette of vital variance. Holmes' holocaust o'er Annalise's air. Raid's requiem in basement's bolt. July 43's Gemara. 40,000's pyre in phosphor's phosphor. Incendiaries Inferno whipping firestorms fong o'er Hamburg's heart. Mail's moratorium a month's mute misery. Survival's sigh in her script's safe harbor. St. Peter-Ording's sanctuary. Training's term in tidal lazarette. North Sea's nurse amid dunes drift. Letters litany. Neva's nadir in Foxholes fader. Sleep specter o'er shell shriek. Hamburg's holocaust in headlines horror. Optimism's oath unbowed. Judgen's rest, Sieg Siegel. Liebe's lone. Stunden's summy in Sieg Schass.